The Philippine Navy is the country's most vital piece of national defense. The Philippines is an archipelago country composed of more than 7,000 islands. Defending the country from external threats, sea robbers, and smugglers has become a national priority. Yet many doubt the formidable strength of the Philippine Navy. So just how strong are the country's Navy defenders? Well, to understand this, it is first important to understand the history. The Philippine Navy officially began in 1898, established by then-President Emilio Aguinaldo. Initially, the Philippine Navy had a small fleet, which became far more evident during the Second World War, which exposed the weakness of the country's maritime defense. The ascent of the Philippine Navy began after the war, when the threat of several rebellions emerged and as the world continued to face serious threats. The Philippines, which saw its economy growing modestly, had nothing but a strong responsibility to build up its maritime forces. They crafted maritime battalions from nothing, earned experiences from overseas wars such as the Korean War, and promoted the use of naval exercise. In 1958, the U.S. and the Philippines conducted its first naval exercise since the country's liberation. The exercise was known as Operation Bulwark I, or Exercise Bulwark, a harbor defense exercise which was led by a Philippine naval officer. By the 1960s, the Philippine Navy immediately emerged as one of the best-equipped navies in the entire Southeast Asian region. The country was shifting its eyes from fighting communist insurgencies locally to building a naval force that is formidable across the region. What truly led the naval's ascent can be seen from the Philippines' longtime partner, the United States. The U.S. Navy has emerged as the world superpower over the course of the 20th century. Their equipment was second to none. The Philippines was also a central destination for fighting communism. Hence, it made so much sense for the U.S. Navy to transfer some of its assets to the Philippines. Some of the assets transferred in the 1960s included RPS Raja Solomon, a destroyer escort which was commissioned by the U.S. Navy in 1944 and then acquired by the Philippines in 1960. The BRP Rizal, which was commissioned in 1965, used to be known as the USS Marilette of the U.S. Navy, which actually operated until 2020 and was considered as one of the world's oldest active fighting ships at that time. There exist several other names, such as BRP Quezon, BRP Andres Bonifacio, to see the Philippines standing out in Southeast Asia. However, a country's national defense is largely reliant on one's economy. Without government money, the Navy cannot flourish. Hence, from the 1970s to 1990s, the Philippine Navy slowly lagged behind its neighbors in terms of growth. But don't get me wrong here, that did not mean that the Philippine Navy got stuck. It just meant that government spending on military affairs had slowly lagged behind. Data from the CIPRI Military Expenditure Database shows that the Philippines' military spending in 1976 was over $2.9 billion, which is far more than Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand. However, by 2020, the Philippines' spending on military stands now at just $3.49 billion, far lower than Malaysia, which spends at about $3.9 billion, Thailand at $7.3 billion, and Indonesia at $9.4 billion. The growth was still seen nevertheless. The Philippine Navy in the contemporary period saw a huge shift when then-President Field V. Ramos signed the AFP Modernization Act in 1995, which subsequently saw amendments to improve its program. The AFP Modernization Act enabled the entire Army to acquire new assets. But it wasn't really until 2016 that the Philippine Navy saw its newest fleet being commissioned. In 2016, the Philippine Navy acquired the Tarlac-class landing platform dock from Indonesia, an amphibious warfare platform, and its first major brand-new ship acquisition since the 1990s. And in consecutive years of 2015 and 2016, the Philippine Navy acquired several Balikpapan-class landing craft heavy, which originated from the Australian Army. But the largest bulk of acquisition was really made in the last 5 years. The famous and flagship modern surface combatants of the Philippine Navy, known as the Jose Rizal-class frigate, saw its first commission in 2020. These frigates, originating from South Korea, have a range of over 4,500 miles, equipped with rapid guns, anti-ship missiles, torpedoes, radars, and sonars. Following the Jose Rizal frigates, in 2019, the Conrado Yap-class corvette was also acquired from South Korea, designed for coastal defense and anti-submarine operations. In 2021, the Mogai-class landing craft utility was also commissioned from South Korea. Lastly, and probably the most famous one, is the Acero-class patrol gunboats, which originated from Israel. These gunboats are fitted with remote gun systems from Rafael Advanced Defense Systems and are equipped with autocannons, surface-to-surface missiles, and machine guns. Now, most of these ships were commissioned only recently. The most plausible reason is likely due to China. China's aggressive stance in the West Philippine Sea has led several governments in the Philippines to call for naval modernization. The Philippine Navy has to step up its defense and stop China from bullying its fishermen. What this leads us to then is that if China continues its aggression, it is likely easy to see the Philippine Navy's growth. There will be more acquisition, more expansion, and more missiles. The Navy itself, through several reports, have already stated this. On top of that, President Bongbong Marcos has been vocal to the expansion of the Philippine military. Not only has he approached the U.S. for a reconnection within their alliance, he has also called the Philippine Navy to strengthen their unit capabilities, citing the need for better border defense. President Marcos has also recently witnessed the launching of several weapons, such as the Navy's new anti-air warfare capability in May 2023 after the BRP Antonio Luna test fired one of its surface-to-air missiles. The weapons acquired by the Philippine Navy from France had a budget of 670 million pesos. So we come at a standstill. Just how strong is the Philippine Navy? Well, it's easy to acknowledge, as many do, that the Philippines is the weakest in the entire Southeast Asian region. We can conclude this through the country's military spending, which falls short of the Big Five in the region. That comes despite the Philippines being an archipelago country composed of thousands of islands. On top of that, some of its islands are contested by its neighbors. The naval size, according to the Philippine Navy website, numbers at 24,500 active personnel, including the 8,300-strong Philippine Marine Corps. It has 82 combat ships, 14 auxiliary ships, 25 manned aircraft, and 8 unmanned aerial vehicles, which are undoubtedly smaller compared to its neighbors. Nevertheless, while it is weak in numbers, it has huge potential. And furthermore, the defense of the Philippine Islands is not solely on the Philippine Navy's shoulders anymore. President Marcos has pursued a proactive approach to his allies, from Japan to the US and even Australia. The US, out of all, has been coming back to the Philippines through the EDCA agreement, which may give an assurance to the country. Through the US Navy, the Philippine Navy has also been actively doing these naval exercises and naval warfare drills. These enable the Philippine Navy to boost its capabilities. But anyway, do let us know what you think. Thanks for watching.